We are Jackie and Janine, the Pfeiffer Sisters, and love to talk about the 1950s, inviting you to reminisce with us as we explore experiences of that decade.
We chronicled the distinct memories of our childhood in our book, While the Windmill Watched, a slice of rural America in the 1950s, which takes you on a notably historic journey through that often forgotten decade. We also want to hear about your experiences during the 1950s. We will feature guests whose special stories of that decade will bring to mind magical moments of reflection, some with tears, some with smiles, but above all, a good dose of laughter.
We would like you to chat with us as we bring to mind the sights and sounds so familiar to that time in history. Grab your favorite malt or Green River. Make sure you are wide awake and get ready to be inspired about the 1950s. Welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat. Hello, what a delight to be with you again on another edition of the 1950s Fun Chat with the Pfeiffer Sisters. You know, really what these stories are and these fun chats are America's story that occurred during the 1950s, and we are so delighted to bring them to you. Before we introduce our guest for this week, please notice in the lower right-hand corner of your screen that there is a red subscribe button. Jackie and I would just love it if you'd click on that and decide to join our YouTube channel, the 1950s Fun Chat. And while you're at it, take a look in the lower left-hand corner because there's a thumbs up button. And again, we'd like you to have you put your little mouse over that and click on it to let us know that you enjoyed this broadcast that we have for you today. Jackie, what's happening today?
Okay, while you're perusing the screen, I'd like to have you notice on the bottom, there's a little banner running across the bottom, www.wildthewindmillwatch.com. That is our website. We'd like to have you check that out. And in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a beautiful North Dakota sunset that wraps around the cover of our book, While the Windmill Watched, a slice of rural America in the 1950s. Now, our book includes so many memories Janine and I have of living in the northern Great Plains in the 1950s. And today, I'm really excited to introduce to you our guest. His name is Russ Danielson. Now, Russ was born in 1943 in Valley City, North Dakota. He currently lives in Fargo with his wife, Helen. Russ was the manager of the NDSU, that's North Dakota State University, beef cattle unit from 1965 to 1973. And then from 1973 to 2010, he was part of the NDSU faculty in the Animal Science Department. Since retiring, Russ has served at the American Simmental Association as a sim specialist on a contract basis. Now, Helen and Russ own and maintain a farm near Valley City, more specifically near Cuba, that was homesteaded by his Swedish immigrant grandfather in 1884. Now, his grandfather's experiences are documented in a book entitled 15 Years in North Dakota. So that would be the first 15 years of homesteading. This book was translated from Swedish into English by Russ's aunt. So, Russ, welcome. We're so glad to have you with us.
Pleased to be here with you too.
Thank you. Russ, you are fortunate to have a written document of your grandfather's immigrant experiences. Even though the book covers many years before the 1950s, would you please share a few interesting tidbits from the book?
Well, thank you. It is unique in the fact that someone would have a history, early history of when their ancestors actually came to this country. So my grandfather came actually to America in 1882 to southern Minnesota, and then eventually found his way to North Dakota in 1883 and was joined by his cousin at that time, Nils Ori, who was actually the author of the book. Nelson and my grandfather, Paratheto, lived as bachelors on the homestead up until 1898 when Nils went back to marry his sweetheart and then wrote the book 15 Years in North Dakota.
Yes. How so different that must how different that must have been for them to come from Sweden, where the topography is so different from North Dakota. Did they mention the huge change it was for them?
Well, it is kind of ironic in the fact that where they came from in Sweden had a lot of rocks, much the same as North Dakota. So they found a similarity in that regard, yes. But no trees, open prairie, and just a new landscape obviously was a challenge for them.
You bet.
Now, so many young people raised in the Plains states have the opportunity to belong to a 4-H club. If you can, in a paragraph or so, try to condense those many years that you experienced and with your membership, maybe some highlights or some activities or some responsibilities that you had when you were a 4-H member. How long were you a member?
I joined I think the youngest age at that time was 10. Mm-hmm. And so I joined 4-H at 10, followed my brothers and older sister. And actually, my mom was the leader of the Cuba Livestock. That was the name of our club. And we had a variety of projects, as most kids did at that time. And we had each had steers and hogs. And to go along with our family garden, I had gardening as a project as well.
Okay. And was the main reason to have that garden was to provide for your family, or did you end up selling any of that produce as well?
No, we really didn't sell anything. Yes, we had a big garden and supplied all the produce for our family, and it was processed, and so we had product throughout the year, and excess, I guess, dispersed to family that lived off the farm and neighbors, much as it is today. We still have a garden, in fact, Helen and I, and I always say that I'm in charge of production and Helen's in charge of distribution.
You've got that figured out, don't you? And I'm curious to know, is that the same garden plot that your mother had?
It's close. Yeah, it's actually we converted the barnyard to our present garden. Yes.
Okay. And do you grow those same kind of vegetables in that garden as what your mom did in the 50s?
Well, it's pretty much carrots and potatoes and peas and beans. Yes. We have a few. We have a few mystery plants every year we get from our daughter.
Yes.
Last year we had tobacco.
You did?
How did that sneak in there?
I have no idea, but
did you harvest it?
We looked at it. We did harvest it, but then threw it away. Yes.
That's a very interesting product, huh? So, belonging to 4-H Club led to many benefits as an adult. And how do you suppose 4-H helped create the person you are today?
Well, I do know that later on, I actually got a national award for gardening, and it included a college scholarship. So that actually helped me through college at North Dakota State University. Yes.
Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
Well, congratulations, belatedly.
Yes. I know you, of course, as related to cattle. Livestock and a cattle, and you were a professor at NDSU at the time that I was there, and of course I became acquainted with you and Helen then, and it was a wonderful experience to know the both of you. So can you tell us a little bit more about your livestock projects or your cattle projects?
Well, like a lot of 4-Hers, being a part of a club involved livestock evaluation or judging. And like Janine, that we went on and competed at the college level, and beyond that, I judged a number of cattle shows around the country as well after I was on faculty.
Okay. Did you ever show livestock at the North Dakota Winter Show?
Well, we did.
But I mean, as a child in the 50s.
Oh, in the 50s, yeah, we had, obviously the County Achievement Day, and
Uh-huh.
the first calf I showed was a white shorthorn steer
Cool.
that deserved a white ribbon, and that's exactly what he got.
Oh, dear.
How old were you?
I probably is 11 or 12, yes.
And that was probably at the old Winter Show facilities in downtown Valley City?
It was, yeah, before they built the new facility, and so that
Yes.
was down in the old Winter Show building.
I remember having been there once when my dad and his friend Howard Goring and I went one day to the Winter Show. It was in that old building, and I was so impressed with the shape. Was it an octagonal shape of where the livestock were housed? And I think we were there for the Shorthorn Show that day.
Right, yeah. When you're that age, it seemed like a huge facility, but in reality, it wasn't.
True. That's very true.
Uh-huh. Well, let's move on to another topic. Russ, I understand your mother wrote weekly news articles for several area newspapers. So what kind of topics did she cover in those days, in the 50s?
Well, she actually wrote the Cuba News, which was our community. She wrote the weekly news of the community for about 50 years, actually over 50 years. And she kept them in a scrapbook, as most people did at that time. And we had documentation of the weekly news was strictly news. There wasn't much commentary other than after Mrs. Rudy Danielson visited with Mrs. Art Lallam and Mrs. Harry Johnson, and they had a delicious lunch. That was
right.
Yes, that's right. Wouldn't you like to know what they had for lunch? Was it Jello?
Jello and sandwiches with hot coffee, I think.
Okay.
Yes. Russ, tell us about the town of Cuba. What was it like in the 1950s?
Well, it was like a lot of communities, and it was there because it was on the Sioux Line Railroad, which was well. Actually, my grandfather helped build the grade for that with horses, and they, I think, in right around 1892 is when they built the Sioux Line, and the construction crew, they named all these little communities, and they had one about every 6 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And Cuba was surrounded by a lot of sloughs, and they thought it might be an island, so they called it Cuba.
Oh, interesting.
And then Cuba was just up the line from Enderlin, which was the end of the line. Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Right.
Uh-huh. And what other businesses were in Cuba? And did you have school there?
We did. Cuba District 33 is where I went to grade school. There was a post office, which included kind of a convenience store. It had a little bit of everything. And the grain elevator. That was previously that it had a number of businesses like a lot of small communities did.
Mm-hmm. And then what was your school grades 1 through 12, or how many grades did it encompass?
1 through 8. And then I started school and let's see, about 48, and there was 1 kid in the first grade and 3 in the second grade. So the next year there were 4 in the third grade.
And then when you went to high school, you went to high school in Valley City.
Right. Following grade school.
Pardon me?
I say following grade school, we transferred into high school at Valley City.
Okay. Now, by reading the book, you will know that Janine and I mentioned that we girls had a few emotional challenges. For one reason or another, maybe we thought we weren't as smart. We thought we didn't dress as well. We just had a few insecurities until we got our feet on the ground and we knew where we belonged, right up there with the rest of them. But did you, as a male, feel any of these insecurities?
I think all of us did, and the fact that we were country kids, and it was kind of it it was a different group than the kids that had gone to, city school for grade school. But we did, we kind of adapted, and and I think a lot of us went on that moved in as country kids. Were in the football and basketball teams, so we kind of found a niche that way. Girls weren't quite as lucky.
No, I guess not. But then you also joined FFA, and that maybe expanded your horizons as well as far as friendships.
I was really involved in 4-H, so we never really did. We didn't get in the FFA group, although they did have one, and those kids in the FFA went through the same experiences really we had in 4-H.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Well, I'm curious to know, Russ, did you have a horse on the farm?
We actually had a couple of teams of horses. Yes. In the 50s, we actually used, we still had some teams that we used for raking and mowing hay. And I think it was kind of nostalgic at that point because we also had tractors. But our family still had a few horses, yes.
Yes. And did you have a pleasure riding horse, or did you use one of the team?
We used team, yeah. We did, yeah. But we weren't.
Any special experiences with riding horseback?
Well, there were a few accidents, yes, but no broken bones.
Oh, that's good. Well, then, when you got into high school or driving age, did you have a car of your own?
Actually, I had two older brothers, and they had a car, and so I think I inherited them after they graduated, but they were just strictly transportation. They weren't fancy enough for compared to some of the cars that we saw in the 50s and 60s.
Yes. And I hope this isn't getting personal, but were you dating in high school?
It's surprising. No.
You were too busy.
I always said that I met Helen in college, and I didn't really. I was a country kid, so I didn't have, and I was pretty shy. Yes, but
yes.
I always say I married a gal at Sweet 16, and she's had 61 years of experience now. So
good for her. Good for both of you.
Yes. So were you, when you were in the 50s, did you get TV?
We did, 1957.
Okay.
And we had spent many hours watching the test pattern before it came on, and
exactly.
And if we stayed up late enough, you saw the national anthem played.
Right,
yes.
And the flag. I remember that as well. When they signed off, it was the national anthem and the flag was flying.
Was it a black and white screen TV, or did you have color TV?
It was it was black and white for quite a few years, Jackie.
That was
black and white and snowy.
And snowy, yes.
How about rabbit ears? Did you have to adjust the rabbit ears on it?
Well, we had rabbit ears with aluminum foil on ours.
Exactly.
So it helped, yes.
And how many television stations were available to you then in 57?
I think the Valley City had a station, and there were two Fargo stations. So maybe there was only two, to be honest with you. One in Fargo and one in Valley City.
Can you remember any television programs from back then?
Well, I know that every Saturday afternoon the baseball game was on. Yes.
Okay. Well, that was important, wasn't it?
Yes.
Did you play baseball?
I didn't. No. I played a little football in high school, and actually I have a claim to fame. I was on the last state champion basketball team that came from Valley City.
Okay.
Wonderful.
And I was the manager. I was the manager.
Oh, okay.
Everyone has a role.
I was the tallest manager in North Dakota. And
how about telephone? Was that available on your farm in the 50s?
We did get telephone prior to 1950, but it was pretty rudimentary. It hung on the wall, and 2 longs and a short. That was our party line call.
Yes, yes. And how many were on your party line? Do you recall?
Too many.
Yeah. So how about having access to the phone? Was that very?
It
Immediate.
was yeah. I as kids we didn't get to use the phone, so and then later on when we had long distance, you paid by the minute, so you kept it pretty short.
Yes. Did you ever do it where you got on, you had called the operator and you wanted to speak person to person to someone, and then you asked to reverse the charges? So then the operator would have to ask the person if they would pay for the call, and then you'd hang up, right? Wasn't that what we did, Jackie?
You sound like you had experience doing that when you were in college.
I did. Yes. And for some reason, it was cheaper to call from Minnesota than it was from Fargo. So I remember going across the bridge, and there was a pay telephone by that hotel there right across the river, and so that's where I would call mom and dad from, and it was cheaper that way from Minnesota.
It must have broadened that opportunity must have broadened, because I remember living in South High Rise, and I did it from the phone in our suite.
Oh yeah, well,
mom or dad accepted the charges. That was fun.
So it's nearing the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas. Do you have any holidays that stand out for you, or maybe special Christmas presents that stand out to you that were more meaningful than others?
Well, obviously everyone has holiday tradition, but and Christmas was a big family get together, usually with my mother's family, kind of surrounded Valley City, and it was a large group. And the unique thing that we had that probably few had was a get together the day after Christmas. My mother was German, my dad was Swede, and the Germans would all have, we called it Sauerkraut Day. So they had a big tub of sauerkraut, and my dad, being Swedish, really didn't partake of sauerkraut, and he always referred to the event as a day of cleansing.
I bet it was. Well, I'm assuming you had an indoor septic system?
Jackie, we didn't know. We had running water. We had 3 boys that ran water from the well to the house.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. That's right. Was there a special gift that you can recall getting at Christmas time?
Oh, I suppose like any boy, a jackknife always was a popular thing, or if you're really good, you got a baseball mitt. And our 4-H group had played softball, so we had lots of that activity in the summertime.
Neat. Well, Russ, what can you attribute anything to your life in the 1950s that really made an impact on you as an adult, and even as in your profession at NDSU?
Well, it was, every kid has someone that they kind of look up to, and I suppose, and I think of the county agent, Larry Iverson at that time, and
yes.
Then the NDSU extension livestock guys like Mel Kirketty and George Strum,
yes,
who I later worked with. But when you're a 4-H kid and they're judging the achievement, they gain a little more respect that way. Yes,
they do. They do. It's amazing what the influence of men like that, especially in the extension service, and even women who are home extension agents, and how they influence. I know me, and I think Jackie as well. They were up there on a different level, and I always thought, well, maybe someday it'd be fun to be in extension, but I never did get to that point. But 4-H had such a huge impact on that decision, and you're right. Those people were very influential in our lives.
Right.
At that time. Okay, Russ, we're getting about to the end of our time. Just if you can think at the top of your head, what would be one fun memory that you have of the 1950s?
Well, I think just growing up on a farm with siblings close by, that I was kind of in the middle of them, so I got the experience of older brothers, and they always claimed that because they were older, they didn't get quite the freedom to do things that I did. But as a middle sibling, I think that was my great memory, is just being with family.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And it was neat to be associated with families back then. That we had a whole different cohesiveness to the family unit than what I think so many families experience now. And
Right.
it
Agree.
was certainly a fun time for all of us. Well, Russ, we want to thank you. A great big thanks for your patience in getting on to record our broadcast today, because we had some technical difficulties, audience. It was a challenge doing this today. But we are so glad that we had this opportunity to learn more about you and your life in the 1950s. Thank you so much. And for how you, just personally speaking, for how you influenced my life as well. We so much appreciate that.
It was great to reconnect with the two of you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, Jackie, what's happening next week on our fun chat? I believe it's Helen, right?
It is Helen, yes. And we're so honored to have Russ's wife, Helen, join us next week on the 1950s Fun Chat. So stay tuned next week to hear more about her and her life.
Yes, she had quite an influence in North Dakota Extension as well. And that will be something interesting to hear about in our fun chat. So until then, we want you to remember the swell times of cool cars, soda jerks, and of course, those poodle skirts.
So be sure to click on that red subscribe button down below, and then the thumbs up button. Tell your friends, even your relatives, about the 1950s Fun Chat. And do join us every week, Monday at 8 p.m. Central. But if you can't join us at that time, do check out our 1950s Fun Chat on the YouTube channel.
And you can learn more about the Pfeiffer Sisters, the two of us, Jackie and me, at our website, whilethewindmillwatch.com. Now, we know that Christmas is coming up, and that's a gift-giving season. So we think that there will be many folks out there who would enjoy receiving a copy of our book, While the Windmill Watched, A Slice of Rural America in the 1950s. So check out our website. You see it ticking across the bottom of your screen, whilethewindmillwatch.com. Take a look at it, because you'll find a lot of great information there. We've had so much fun today visiting with our guest, Russ Danielson, and we hope that you have enjoyed this chat too. So we'll see you next time on the 1950s Fun Chat. Bye-bye.
We appreciate and thank each and every one of you, our viewers. Toodaloo.